Well, hello there, and welcome to The View from A Broad. I'm the Broad, and this is the podcast that takes a look back at columns I wrote that ran in Hong Kong's South China Morning Post between 1993 and 2000. I lived in Hong Kong for 40 years, but there was this little 7-year window when I was a columnist. And we take a look back at those columns to see what's changed in the world and what's changed in ourselves over the last 3 decades. And today's guest is writer and artist John Paul Flintoff. And he's just published a very personal book of his illustrations that capture his experience of being admitted to a psychiatric hospital with severe depression in 2018. So I just want to flag for you that we will be talking about depression and anxiety and suicide, so you make your choices about whether this feels like the right place for you to be today. Before John Paul joins us, let's have a listen to the column that he chose. Going Postal in the Nicest of Possible Ways. I don't know, maybe I'm nuts or maybe they're nuts, and if they are, we could all use more of this kind of crazy. In the United States, they are not only nuts, they are psychotic. In fact, there's a specific term for their particular variety of flipping out, of going ballistic, of freaking in a big way. Over the years, the US Postal Service has had more than its share of, quotes, disgruntled workers. And when they cease to be gruntled, they don't just diss the boss. They take it out on all and sundry, and usually with the aid of a semi-automatic rifle. It's gotten to be a joke. Seriously. In the television comedy series Seinfeld, Jerry's arch-enemy was his neighbor Newman, a mailman on the verge of going postal if ever there was one. I thought of Newman as I left my local post office in Hong Kong yesterday. I had entered dragging 3 large boxes of Christmas presents to be sent to the U.S. It's not that I'm this Stepford wife who's super organized. It's that I'm frugal. I can't bear to put airmail postage on a package that's totaling more than the cost of the gifts inside. It really irks me. It makes me crazy. It makes me almost postal. So I'm entering the post office, not 100% sure I've made the deadline, and I'm maneuvering these unwieldy brown boxes to get in the queue. And every time somebody moves on, I have to unstack and stack them again 5 inches in front of where they were before because, I'm in line here, people, so don't think I'm just standing around killing time in a post office with a bunch of Gulliver's building blocks. I'm in line and I have a deadline to meet, and if you cut in front of me, you will be crossing my deadline. Stack. Unstack, push, inch, stack. I'm getting up to the head of the queue, and I'm able to make out the list entitled Christmas Surface Mail. All right, Bolivia, Botswana, Haiti, Honduras. Okay, at last, the U.S., the land of the free and the home of the brave, from sea to shining. What? November 2nd, 1998? Oh, good, relief. There's another date listed. November 9th, 1998. Whew. Okay, must have just read that wrong. Stack, unstack, inch, push, stack. I'm at the front of the queue now, and the postal worker is smiling. Is this an early sign of dementia? A pre-going postal tic? Hi. I just want these parcels to go to the U.S. by sea, and I want to confirm that I've made the deadline. Yes, no problem. November 9. Oh, no, that's for letters. November 2nd for parcels, sorry. Do you want to send them by air? He asks. Don't the parcels sometimes make it? I mean, is there a chance they might get there in time? I ask, panic in my voice. His smile broadens. Okay, I'm waiting for it. Glee at being able to tell some lowly non-postal type person that there is no way in hell that package will arrive after the deadline has passed. They either have to pay up for airmail or shut up, because they have missed that boat, literally. Well, maybe. Sometimes they make it, he offers encouragingly, but no guarantee. He whips out a measuring tape. Oh, here it comes, I think. The package is too big, or it's the wrong shape, or something, and they're going to stick me for more post. Oh, good luck. These last two boxes are small enough. You can go for a special rate. It will save you some money. I joked to his partner, the stamp guy, that maybe I should be paying a commission to him for finding the lower price. And we all laugh. I pay for my stamps, and then he sticks them on for me. And then they wave goodbye, and they mime pushing the boxes onto the ship. As I headed home, I thought of Seinfeld's Newman, a caricature of the disgruntled US Postal worker facing an endless stream of mail each day, performing a job that is never finished. No different from the fellas at my local post office, except that when my mailman goes postal, he shoots you a smile. John Paul, thank you so much for joining me on The View from Abroad.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here, and lovely to see you, albeit on a computer screen, after quite a long time.
Yeah, I was just, kind of thinking about this, in anticipation of talking to you and thinking that, the last time we saw each other, we were sitting in front of the National Theatre having a good yap in the sunshine, looking out over the River Thames. And before that, we met in London in a workshop that was exploring Keith Johnstone's approach to transmask work, the sort of commedia dell'arte masks. And I think you were writing an article, weren't you, at the time?
Well, I think that was maybe my pretext. I mean, I did, but I really just wanted to do the course. And that was absolutely a mind-blowing experience for me. I mean,
let me ask the first question. Why did you choose that column?
Well, I suppose there are a couple of reasons. One is that I sense that the kind of the mental health element, the sort of going crazy element, was an obvious touchstone for our conversation. But also, I am actually sending out a huge number of parcels at the moment, so it felt very on point on that whole other area. And so it was just a really obvious, easy win for me, that one. So,
that's great.
For both those reasons.
Listening back to that recording of the column, I'm the one who sounds like I'm about to go postal in that Hong Kong post office. And then, I think the other thing that's important to unpack is that term, going postal. When I wrote that back in the mid-90s, there were these massive shootings, and they were happening again and again, and they seemed to be, almost all of them, with postal workers who either currently worked or no longer worked for the US Postal Service, and there were like 40 people killed in these things. Should mental health be a topic that should be off limits today in terms of humor?
Well, I don't know about should, but I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? About anything that is funny, it usually means that the person who's finding it funny is far away enough from the experience. If you watch a person fall over on a banana skin, it's tremendously funny unless you're the person. Whether it's kind of always going to be in the eye of the beholder, whether it's acceptable or not, or offensive or not. And I think maybe under what we're talking about here is, should I, John Paul, be offended that anyone would use a term like that or write humorously about mental health? Well, maybe in another day I would be, but I'm so not. In fact, I quite often enjoy describing myself as a loony and then saying I'm allowed to say that because I've been in psychiatric hospital. So it's my joke. I own it. And another layer of why I'm not offended is my problem was depression. It wasn't like psychosis and violence towards others. It was, I hated myself.
Well, listen, here we are, how many years later, 30 years later, and the difference in the way that we talk about mental health and men's mental health particularly, it's considered now a silent global pandemic.
Yeah, it is. I know you did the sort of health warning at the beginning of the episode, so I'm going to assume that I can talk freely about
Yes, please.
why I'm talking about this and about my own experience and why I've published this book about it. So one of the things that I think is quite interesting is that as a journalist, I was sent several times, in fact, 4 weeks in a row, to do stories that had to do with suicide. And I was just not, I had obviously a very good bedside manner, at least relatively speaking, compared with the others on the paper. And that's why I kept being sent. So I was sent to do these stories, and I had no psychological training. I didn't have a therapist. I'd never had a therapist. I certainly wasn't a therapist. I had no way to contain the terrible darkness of these stories. And they included people who'd tried a suicide pact, and one of them had died and the other one hadn't. And someone who lost a father, someone who lost a husband, and others. And one of the stories was about a film that someone had made, putting together footage of everybody who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge in a single year. So it's quite a lot of very difficult footage to watch. And then I interviewed a filmmaker, and I interviewed some people relating to those very sad stories. And I also interviewed a guy who had jumped off the bridge in a state of great despair. And he told me, I mean, he had survived against all odds because it's a very long drop. Most of the time, the impact kills people. Then there's very cold water. Then there are sharks. Lots of reasons why people don't survive. This guy was lucky enough only to break some bones and to be seen by someone who rescued him, and he wasn't taken by a shark. Anyway, this guy who I talked to, called Kevin Hines, told me at the time, and it really stuck in my head, that he had regretted it the moment his hand left the rail. And so he had several seconds to regret it. And so that really stuck with me. And I was very depressed by all of this. I think it was probably the start of becoming very depressed because I just had nowhere to put it. But much later, when I did become actually clinically depressed and got to the point where I had to eventually tell my wife that I was having a lot of suicidal thoughts, and I had been for 6 months. And then I went to see a psychiatrist and was admitted to hospital at my own request. I wasn't sectioned or anything. And the therapist who took my case said that he wondered whether maybe that experience as a journalist had kind of inoculated me, protected me against wanting to do anything, because I had heard these stories about regretting it and I had seen so much of the terrible mess that it leaves behind, emotional mess. So yeah, maybe he's right, maybe he's not right. It doesn't really matter. The point is, I went into hospital, and then I saw people coming in who had attempted to end their own life probably every other day, if not sometimes every day. And the sheer number just so shocked me. This is just one hospital, and obviously, many people don't attempt it from one day to the next. But that was really quite a surprise. And I made myself a promise at the time, not that I was in any state to believe that I would ever be able to do anything, because I really, really had very little self-respect. But I thought if I were able to tell anyone anything useful, it would be to spread the word that it might actually get better. And a lot of people are going in, and none of them ever said, "Oh, I wish I'd been successful."
Right.
So they were the lucky ones who had failed to be successful.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was a good thing to share that.
Yeah. How long were you actually in the hospital?
So I was on what nobody called suicide watch for about a week, where they just kept on looking at me for 15 minutes, every 15 minutes. I was really shocked by that, because I hadn't thought that I was a danger to myself, but they clearly thought I was. So that was very lowering. Made me really, you can imagine how little self-respect I had after I realized that they thought that about me, with good reason. And then for maybe a couple of weeks afterwards, I was still in the hospital, but I was allowed out with accompanied. And then I was allowed out on a daily basis. And altogether, it was about eight weeks. So quite a long time.
Well, let me ask you something. I mean, I have ordered a copy of your book, as you know, and
it's right here under my microphone. It's already parceled up. Let me show you. Let me see. Yeah.
Yay! That's me. I'm number 113.
Yes, 113.
Oh, great. Well, listen, the thing that comes up for me when I read you sent there's a page in the book that gives a little of it's like a preface for the piece. And I understood that only your wife and your daughter initially knew that you were checking yourself into the hospital, and then you called some friends. What are some things that you feel family members should be looking for? Or what is there anything that you can say that might be helpful to family members who are suspecting that there may be a problem or aware that there's a problem but don't know what to do about it?
Yeah, thank you. So I was doing a lot of things that were very ineffectual. And some of them were quite well hidden by me, but other things weren't. Like I would leave the front door open. I would leave the gas stove on. Things that were really annoying and stupid, and they drove me crazy because what am I doing this for? But I guess those are things that someone might look out for. Why is this person behaving uncharacteristically?
And were you aware that you were leaving the door open, or was something that you didn't realize you'd done it until after the fact?
Oh no, I did. No, totally. I just thought I'd come in the house and shut the door, but I hadn't. I'd walked upstairs and left the front door open. Just,
Right.
not very sensible.
It wasn't an intentional thing. It was, yeah.
No, it was a bit chaotic. I wasn't answering my mail. I wasn't opening my mail. I was afraid of the letters from anyone or institutional, and I thought I'm going to be told I owe more tax or debt from the bank or something. I was scared, so I just put it all on a heap. So I was not managing myself in a way that I had previously. So those are little things. And I think a very gentle request. I'm afraid it's probably true that men really are not very good at talking about things. I thought I was. I'd been a journalist for a long time. As I said, had this good bedside manner and all that stuff, but I couldn't even see that I was struggling. So I'd get cross if people pointed things out. So it would have required an undue amount of patience and kindness that is implausible. I think people are just going to get really fed up with someone who's in that state, and I get it. And so all I can say is, like, please keep circling back and thinking, can I just take a breath and then try and be kind again? Because clearly this person's struggling.
Right.
It's not going to be easy.
So was the catalyst for this as a sense of inability to provide? Was
That's a
that
really
what
good
the
question.
money thing was about?
That is a really good question. I'm not trying to be evasive. I think there are just too many variables to really give you a clear answer. But
Right.
2 or 3 years beforehand, so that's quite a long time beforehand, I had one person die, and I gave the eulogy, and just before her funeral, someone else died. And while we were preparing the funeral kind of pictures and things for her, someone else collapsed and stopped breathing. So I thought, oh right, so someone dies every month, and that month, 2 or 3 years before, I got really depressed. I think something just went inside me, and I became very afraid of the universe. Like, what's going to happen to me now? The person who stopped breathing did start again, so this person was okay, but I was just so thrown by those 3 things in 3 months. After that, I lost confidence in all sorts of things. So work became harder for me to do. I didn't believe in my own capacities. It became incrementally worse and worse. So then I lost work, or didn't even apply for work, or I put into all sorts of clever thinking about how I was going to get certain work and then never sent it. This is what I mean about the incapable kind of thing. And
Yeah.
just getting letters from people saying you owe some more money, and then thinking I can't answer those, so I'm not going to do that. So then getting worse and worse and worse. I'm now definitely useless. So I must definitely stop being me. That sort of was the point I got to. It took a long time. I can't say any of those things on its own was the thing.
Right. I understand. It's sort of like a perfect storm.
Yeah.
When you went to your wife and said, "I feel I'm worthless and I'm thinking about I want to end my life."
Yes. So I didn't want to talk to my wife. That would be the worst thing. This is someone I've said I want to live my whole life with. You don't want to say I don't want to be alive. So for 6 months, I could not countenance saying anything to her. So I said something to someone I knew I really liked, but I didn't know that well. And I just said something to him, and then it all came out, and he said, "You've got to tell your wife." And I thought, oh God, that's the worst.
Mm.
And of course, once I actually talked to her, it was like, "Oh, well, let's get you to the doctor or something." Sorry, I'm feeling a bit choked up again because it's really painful memory.
Yeah.
I'm fine, but
Yeah.
I'm feeling it again. And so, of course, she just said, "Let's go to the doctor." And she looked up a good psychiatrist as well. I used to do talks in companies about the stuff that's now in the book. And I'd show those pictures, and my voice would crack up, and I'd feel really sad again. Because they're powerful because they were an attempt to be honest. I didn't draw them for anyone else. I was trying to make sense of what's happening to me. Why do I hate myself so much? So
Yeah.
all that, it's very hard for it not to be a powerful picture.
I had been watching on LinkedIn because that was really the only way we were connected. I'd been watching these posts and seeing more and more of this beautiful artwork. And then I saw this post that came up, and then it told this amazing personal, um, redemptive story. And it was very brave of you to put that on LinkedIn. I mean, I realize that LinkedIn is kind of moving out of being just sort of a find a job and talk about your workspace and opening up to be a little bit more personal. But I thought that took a lot of courage.
Thank you. It did feel like, oh God, what have I done? I think because I've been a writer and a journalist for a long time, and I've done other books as well. Everything always makes me feel like, oh God, everyone's going to hate this. Like, what have I
Oh,
done? But I'm just used to it. So it's like, oh well, that's what I feel. Probably someone will say something really nice about it because they're all deluded. Um, that's my usual thinking process. So I know I'll be all right. No one's come after me with a knife. No one's gone postal on me.
I want to say something about um, your talent. I have been describing your style of illustration. It reminds me a little bit of John Lennon's. You know, it's these simple line drawings that really capture emotion and personality and then you add to that some watercolor, I believe. Is that your
Yeah,
milieu? You're
yeah.
just so talented with this, and I love it. And I love that this book is filled with these illustrations. What nudged you to publish it now?
Well, thank you for what you said. I always drew, and I realize now that I used to draw to calm myself down and to be very grounded and centered when anything got difficult. And so I kind of wanted to put the book out as a thing that transmits the message without me
So
needing
you
to
don't
always
have to
do it.
relive it every time. Yes,
But
no, that makes sense.
I didn't have the courage to do that until relatively recently because I thought
Mm.
I might still be a mess. It's still a hopeless basket case postal person. And so only recently have I thought, no, I'm probably, it could happen again. Who knows? But I'm probably pretty strong at the moment. So let's do it.
And now, when we're talking about these illustrations in the book, you're just drawing things around you or how you feel yourself, and it's colored with emotion.
Yes. So essentially most of them are the line drawings that I drew when I was there. And they would be things like a very straightforward picture of something in the hospital. Or they would be much more metaphorical. So when I was angry, I just drew pictures of me, this specky man. And I need to explain what a specky man is because people maybe don't understand, but it's not a term I particularly use, but it was used in my presence. And I just thought that sounds really funny. And I kind of like the humor of it. A specky man is a person who has spectacles. And I'd done some drawings quite a while afterwards, 2 or 3 years after the hospital, and they were unrelated to this topic. And they were drawings that just happened to have a picture of this kind of specky man figure that I'd invented of myself, like a person with messy hair and glasses. And someone said, "Oh, what is this? I love this specky man figure." And I thought, yeah, that's great. I'll be the specky man. That's like, I like that. It's a thing. I'll be that thing. And there were lots of pictures of Specky Man. And as it happens, I went into hospital just days after getting my first full-time spectacles. So I was in all of the drawings in hospital, newly to me, a figure in spectacles. So it was very relevant that it was a specky man.
Yeah.
So there we are.
Well, listen, the illustrations that I've seen so far, I cannot wait to get my paws on this book. I've had asked you to send it to a friend of mine in London who I'm going to see soon, and so I will look forward to it then. But for those of you who might be interested in this book, you can go to www.flintoff, FLINTOFF.org. Let's come back and find out the story that was stimulated by the column that went postal.
It's a little bit oblique. It's not so much about the postal.
That's great. Whatever.
It's more about what you're doing and how I like this concept, this project of finding renewed life and value in, I'm talking about me, not about you, something that's very temporary and throwaway, journalism. And it can feel very like, well, no one wants that anymore. And so why would anyone want to go back and revisit that? But what I've noticed is that there's a sort of really wonderful, actually there's a wonderful thing that happens when you do go to something that seems like it might not have much value. And again, I'm not only talking about your idea, this idea that you have with this column revisiting, but I'm thinking about some of the stories that I've done myself as well, obviously, because I'm a journalist and I wrote a lot of disposable journalism. But I think one of the things that I've noticed that can happen with journalism is that it would be, after a certain amount of time, it becomes really not interesting to anybody. And then a little bit longer, and it's like, ooh, this becomes like a treasure. And it reminds me that there's a quality that we confer on anything, which is by giving it some attention, it becomes precious and valuable. And so what I particularly admire about your project is that you are doggedly finding value in something that I personally have given up on my own archive. Often I felt like it's not worth, no one wants to look at that stuff except me and whatever. But actually what you have done is remind me that there are many other ways and other areas in my life where I really passionately believe and have found to be the case that if I give some attention to something, I make it precious just by doing that, just by giving it some attention. And, I like to think this is a kind of a happy extension of what happened. I did want, when I was at school, to be an artist. When I was 14, I won a competition for painting. And then a teacher put me off and I became a writer instead, as if that's like easy, which of course is ridiculous. But I had always had this yearning to make art. And as I told you, I made a lot of art, and some of it in the hospital was quite dark. But I was prolific. I made like 300 pictures in the hospital. And that taught me that I just have to keep making art. And about a year ago from now, I had my first solo gallery show in an art gallery. And that felt like such a big win for me. So I was so happy. And I found myself making some ad hoc improvised, improvisers can't help it, improvised speech at the launch thing. And the show was all about magnolias. And a magnolia tree was one of the first things that I found myself making a picture of because it was so beautiful after I'd come out of hospital. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. I really love this magnolia tree. It looks so beautiful. I made this picture and I'm really happy to be able to sort of try to be with the beauty of the magnolia. So I kept making lots of pictures of magnolias. And last year, the show was a show all about magnolias and how they represent this moment when suddenly nature comes back. All the color starts coming back, and I feel so happy about it. And obviously I'm associating it in my mind with this moment of some part of my recovery. And anyway, at the opening of my show, I just made some speech, and I found myself saying that I just love magnolias. I love looking at them, and they're things that I like to give some attention to. And the things that we give our attention to become precious because we give our attention to them. And I guess that's what your project has made me think of, is my obsessive, dogged looking at magnolias over the last few years. And it was prompted by me seeing some kind of an affinity as a journalist who's produced so-called useless, disposable journalism before, and seeing that your you're finding the value in it and having these conversations with people. So I really admired that. So thank you for doing it.
Well, thank you very much for saying that. It means a lot to me coming from you. Well, look, I think that we're probably going to have to wrap up this conversation. Thank you, John Paul, for joining us. Again, here's where you can get a copy of his extraordinary book, Speccy Man Has a Breakdown. Have I got that right, or is it The Speccy Man?
It's a Speccy Man, a Speccy Man.
A
That's
Speccy
right.
Man. And the place to find it is www.flintoff, that's FLINTOFF.org. And look, if you're enjoying the View from Abroad podcast, do me a solid. And before you sign out of whatever platform you're watching or listening to us on, please take just 30 seconds to subscribe, follow, and comment, or leave a review on Google. Thank you again, John Paul, for joining us today. If you're experiencing mental health challenges, reach out to health service professionals and breathe all the time. Come up slowly. And remember, whatever's going on that's causing you pain today, tomorrow's a new day, and what if it's good?